All right, everybody, welcome. I'm so glad you're joining us here for Google Essentials Drive. This is our topic today. We're going to be discussing all the different ways that we can use Google Drive in a productive manner, but we are going to be starting all the way at the beginning. And we do this so that we can make sure that everybody has a really firm foundation in Google Drive before we start adding and changing things. So if you've been using Google Drive for any amount of time, you may find that some of the items are going to be, maybe you feel like you've done them before, you're familiar with some of these pieces, but the important part is that we are considering all of the different pieces as building blocks as we start to use Google Drive more and more. So our objectives for today, we're going to be looking at the core elements of Google Drive. So what those look like are just basic navigation. Can we figure out exactly where our files are located in the first place? How can we start to organize those things? Then we want to be talking about files that have been shared with you. How do I add those files to my drive? Then we'll talk about permissions. Looking at the different ways we can share Google Drive with other people. That also informs how people are sharing those files with us. And also see how we can use all of the different tools we have at our disposal to share additional files using some of our other G Suite products. That's looking at Google Drive as a whole. Then we'll look at specifically individual files. By the end of today, I want to make sure that you can create, move, download, convert, share, search, and collaborate for specific files and folders. So that's a lot of what we're going to be focusing on today. Again, I did want to remind you that we are going to be starting at the beginning. So if you are familiar with Google Drive, if you're already using it, you may find that some of these elements seem like they're things that you've been doing for a while. I still want you to follow through with the activities. Make sure you're doing all the different steps. We are going to have a lot of activities in our 2 hours today, and those are designed specifically so that you can be positive that I have each individual element before I start stacking things on top of each other. So even if it's something you feel like you've done before, please follow along with the activities. There is a purpose. They also build on each other. So the first activity we do will then lead into the second, third, fourth, and we'll continue on in that fashion. So please continue along with us as we move forward. File management is knowing what you have, where you have it, and including others in that process. And yes, I did absolutely quote myself in my own presentation. I just couldn't find a better file management quote, so I made one up, and I feel pretty strongly about it, that this is what we're trying to do here at the university. We're creating files. I need to know where I put it. That's the most important piece of it. Do I know where I put it myself? And then I need to include others in that process. So this collaborative piece of Google Drive is incredibly powerful. We can use Google Drive in a number of different ways. The first one is just for storage. We have unlimited storage with our Pepperdine accounts. So that means if you have just regular files and you need a place to store them long term, you could, in the past, you might have a local drive on your computer. You might have a hard drive sitting right next to your computer. You might even be using the S drive, a networked drive that's provided by the IT department that your department pays for on a monthly basis. You may have a number of different ways that you can just store things for long-term use. But Google Drive does that, and it does it really, really well. And we don't have to pay for additional storage when we get to a certain cap because we have that unlimited storage. So it's unlimited. We can use it just to put things for long-term storage. We can also use it a lot more actively. So I can use it to create these files for myself. So we've got, you'll see that we have Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. Those are going to cover our equivalents to Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We also have some other tools inside of there that I'll start to show you as we go forward through today. We have a lot of flexibility here to create new files and use Google Drive on a very active basis. So it's not just where we're storing things, it's where we're actually creating things as well. And that allows us to be really collaborative with our colleagues. It allows us to take one document and have all 5, 10, 15, 100 of our colleagues be working on that same file. And we'll see how that works as well. And all of this leads to this important piece, which is it removes physical dependency on a particular computer. So in our current state, your laptop might be one of the most precious things that you have, not just in terms of cost, but just what the work is that you're doing on a daily basis. If all of your files are saved locally, if all of your connections are there on your physical computer, what happens if that computer fails? What happens if your computer is back at the office and you were told you can't come back to campus, but I need you to work remotely? I think we had a little bit of flexibility recently, but during the Woolsey fires, we had to just hightail it out and people couldn't come back to campus. So because if we're putting all of our files in our storage place on Google Drive and we're generating our new files in Google Drive, suddenly this physical computer that I have in front of me, I could swap it out for a different computer, fire up my account, and I'm back to working just as I had been previously. Now, if you have specific programs on your computer, yeah, those are definitely going to have to be reinstalled. But in terms of the files, the part that really can be impactful if those files are lost, if a program is lost, we can reinstall it. That's no problem. But if those files are lost, we're suddenly looking at a loss in time, productivity, and possibly just data in general that we need for the university. So Google Drive allows us to start putting those things in a place that we can interact with regardless of what device that we're on. Okay, so I want us now, if you haven't already, I need you to log into Google Drive. You can get there directly by going to, if you know the Pepperdine web address, pepperdine.edu, just put Drive in front of it. So it says drive.pepperdine.edu. Or if you have your email or your Google Calendar open, there's a hamburger icon on the top right corner of the screen. So if I'm in email and I click, not hamburger, but it looks like a waffle right here, I can click on Google Drive and it'll take me directly there. So I want to make sure everyone is looking at a screen very similar to this. And while you're looking there, there are 4 things I want you to find. So before I teach you anything, I want you just to try and find these items. So there's the grid list view. How do I change that? How do I create new documents using the new button? Where's the search bar? And how do I get to my settings? All right, I am going to walk through those 4 items and show you where each one of those are. So the grid list view is based on this top level view of my files. So at the top of this list, I have all of my files listed. It's going to show folders first and then my files underneath. But if I want to change the way this looks, I currently have it in list view. If I want to change it to grid view, in the top right corner of the screen, just underneath where I see my Pepperdine name, with possibly my picture or my first letter of my first name, also underneath the waffle icon, I see this little box with lines through it. If I'm currently in list view, this will allow me to switch to grid view. This is what grid view looks like. So again, I have my folders at the top, files underneath, but grid view looks at it more like thumbnails. So if I'm working with images, this might be a really easy way for me to quickly identify which file I'm looking for. I prefer list view. So I'm going to switch it back, and I can just switch these back and forth as I need to. So now I'm back at list view, and I see all of my files here. Next up was the add new button. On the left side of the screen, you'll see a plus sign with the new button. This is going to be the same in Gmail and in Calendar. They both have very similar buttons. In fact, the new button, the search bar, and the settings. The reason I point these out here is because they're probably going to look almost identical to what you've seen in other G Suite tools. So Gmail and Calendar have very similar looks to this. So when I click new, this is where I can create my new documents, and we'll do that here in just a little bit. Next up is my search bar, powered by the very, very powerful Google Drive. We'll have a whole section talking about search, how we can use simple search and advanced search just to find those specific files that we're looking for. Last thing is our settings, and I want everyone to go to the settings with me. You find the gear icon in the top right corner of the screen, click that one, and now go to settings. All right, so in the settings, I want to make sure, and again, I want everyone to go to your settings and open them up because there's an option here. I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with this one. You see this one that says convert uploads? I want to make sure that nobody has that selected. So if you have that selected, I want you to unselect it just for the purposes of today. If you decide after today that you do want this selected, I want to make sure you know what it's doing first, and I'll show you what that is a little bit later on. But for now, I want to make sure that nobody has this option selected. The other one I'll just point out while we're here, and it's one that kind of gets asked about, is your screen, when you were looking at your files, might have had one element that I didn't have, and that's these suggestions here. It's actually called a quick access menu. So I'm going to select it just for a second so you can see what it looks like. So I now have my quick access selected. And when I click done, you see at the top of my page, it shows me items that it thinks I might be interested in. And actually, this is giving me a good reminder that I need to actually delete this folder because that is still there from the last time I taught this class. So I'm going to refresh my page. And those files are still in the trash. I'm going to clear out the trash real quick. And there we go. All right, so just so I have a little bit more space to show everybody, I'm going to turn off the quick access option, but I wanted you to know what it's doing if you have it selected, or why your screen might look slightly different than mine. All right, so here we have our main screen here where we're going to be working with our different elements inside of Google Drive. So first, we're going to be talking about creating new files and folders. I want to make sure that I have the simplest ways that I can do some of these items. Now, I will also point out right at the top, you may have different methods for creating some of these items. All throughout today, I'm going to show you a specific way to do something. It's very possible that Google has provided one or two other ways that you can accomplish the same element, but I want to make sure that you have the one that I think is the easiest to keep track of, the easiest one to just naturally move over to. That doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. It's just the way that I found can be the easiest to share and train you on. So if we're talking about creating new files, first thing we want to do is we want to first create a new file. So I'm going to do this here. So on the top left corner of the screen, I have my new button, and I can just click right here on new, and I can open up a Google Doc. Now this is the preferred, actually I'll come back to that one. I'm going to create a Google Doc, but if you notice, I have a few other things I can create. I can create a doc, a sheet, a slide. If I hover over this More button, I'm also going to have options for Google Forms, as well as Google Drawings. So these first 5, doc, sheet, slides, forms, and drawings, I found to be some of the most common things that people are using and recreating over and over again inside of Google Drive. So for right at this moment, I'm going to create a Google Doc. And as I click on the Google Doc, you'll notice in my browser tab, it opens up in a new tab right next to Google Drive. It didn't open it up on top of Google Drive. All it did was open it in the browser tab next to it. So if I wanted to keep this open and go back to Google Drive, I can just click on my browser tab for Google Drive. And here I am looking at the same section I just had created a second ago. I'm going to come back to my document just by clicking on the tab. And I can give it some information here. So I'm going to say, this is a document. It looks great. And I can do some pretty basic text formatting here. So I can say, here's a list. And I can put lists in here and do red, green, blue. Here's the end. And I have just the core elements that I need. I can change the text, the size. I can do basic formatting. I can do all sorts of different things here, along with inserting images and other files. I have a pretty robust document editor available to me. So as I start to click around, I've created the document I want to create. I was just using it as a quick way to start a brainstorming session, and I might hand this off to some of my colleagues later on, but this is all I need to do for now. But the first thing I need to do before I'm done is I can look up here at the top of the page, and you see it says all changes saved in Drive. One of the most important features that we have with Google Drive is that it's saving almost as fast as I can type. So if I need to make any edits, so here's this first sentence, I actually want this to be a sentence, so I'm going to add a period. It saves it right as I type it. And if I change this from great to I say, this looks pretty awesome, I love it. It's saving almost as fast as I can type. So if my computer were to crash or I were to lose power and I lost this browser tab entirely, because it's saving as fast as I can type, I don't have to worry about losing that work that I had done. So I don't have to worry that, oh, that 15 minutes of work, it was such good writing and now I lost all of it. These documents are saving as I create them in real time. The last thing I need to do here, now that I see that it's saved, is it's still called Untitled Document. So if I hover over the words Untitled Document, you'll notice that right underneath it's saying, do I want to rename this file? And so if I click directly on Untitled Document, it looks like it pulled text from my document. What it's doing is it's looking at the very first line of my document and assuming that's probably the title of my document. So it's trying to auto-fill for me. I want to rename this, so I'm going to call this Training Class Document. And Google doesn't know that I'm done typing yet. So if I were to click out of this screen, if I were to close this, I have not yet updated the name of this document. So if I want this name to save, I do need to click out of that text box. And I know that the name is updated because at the top of my screen in my browser tab, instead of saying Untitled Document, it says Training Class Document. So now all of my changes have been saved. I've given it a name. I can close this tab entirely. I don't have to go and search for a save button because it saved as I was typing. So I can click the X in my browser tab, goes back to my Google Drive tab, and down there at the bottom, sure enough, there's that training class document that I already created. I can also create folders. So I'm going to click New one more time, and instead of creating a Google Doc, I'm going to create a folder. So I have all these documents, but if I just keep adding documents to that top level of my drive, I'm not organizing those files in any way. And trying to find that one specific file in a long, long list of hundreds or possibly thousands of files over time, it's unmanageable. So we need to start creating folders just as if we were storing them on our local computer or in some other file saving method. It's just basic file management. So I'm going to call this training class folder and click create. And so if I wanted to create more files for this training class folder, instead of creating them from this top level of my drive, if I double click directly on this training class folder, I can open it up. And so now when I create a new document, it's going to be created inside of this folder. So now I come over here, I click new. Instead of a doc, I'm going to make a sheet. Just going to give it a little bit of text in here, just that it has something to save. So here's some text, here's some text. Let's see if I can add this here. 1, 2. Just give it some numbers. Actually, I'm going to highlight both of these. Just some variation. I'm going to give it a name because now that I've given it some context, I'm going to say training class sheet. I click out of the box to make sure the name saves. All my changes have been saved and I click X. And so now in this folder called training class folder, there is my training class sheet. So this is a moment where I like to point out, I know I've seen a lot of people in the past kind of just by habit, not creating files from Google Drive, but coming up here to their waffle icon and saying, oh, I need a new Google Doc. So they come up here to the waffle icon, they open up Google Docs, and then they create documents from here. Now this will create the document and you can come back in and look at it. The problem is it's not organized in any way that's helpful. In fact, anytime you create a document from here just by clicking new, it just puts it into this top level of my drive, adding to this total number of unfiled documents. So the better method is to find the location where you want that file to be stored, open it up, make sure you're looking at that folder at the top, and then start generating files directly from Google Drive. Don't use this kind of intermediate spot to create these documents. You have the same ability, including these same templates that are available, all from here with the new button. If you hover over this little option here, you can open up a document from a template. So this is the better way to make sure you're organizing these files in a way that's helpful. And so each one of you, I want you to now, inside of Google Drive, I want you to create a folder for today, and I want you to just give it a name that you can use for today. After today, feel free to delete all of this. So give it a name that you're going to be able to identify and get rid of afterwards if you need to. So create a folder, give it a name, and then create a doc and give it a name. All right, so you should have a folder and a document. And now I want you to go one step further. I want you to have a doc, a sheet, a slide, a form, and a drawing. Now I'm not going to show you how to do all of those inside of those documents, but I just want you to put some amount of documentation inside of there so that it has something that it can save. So by the end of this section, you're going to have 5 documents inside of that folder that you've created for this session. Don't take much time on these, just create the file, drop in a piece of text, give it a name, and then get done with it. All right, so let's make sure we're all on the same page. What are the 2 different views that you have for your files? Which one do you prefer? What are some of the benefits of creating new files in Google Drive rather than on your local computer? How do you create a new file in Google Drive? All right, everybody, so next up we're going to be talking about organizing the existing files that we have. So I just showed you how to create files, but what if I have files that I already created or I want to reorganize how things are being put together? How can I do that? And then once I've done that, 6 months from now, how do I then find that file, especially if I have a really extensive folder structure that I'm organizing things in? So I'm going to come back over to Google Drive, and all of you should have all 5 files inside of this training class folder. But if you remember, I created a document before I created this training class folder. So I'm going to come back out to my drive, and there is that first document that I have, and I want to get it into the training class folder. And so within Google Drive, we can click and drag and move things. If I can see where I want it to go, if I can see the end location, all I need to do is click directly on the file, and I hold down that mouse click, and as I move my mouse up, when I highlight over the folder that I want it to go into, it puts that blue box around it. I just release my mouse click, and it drops it into that folder. And it'll even give me an update at the bottom of the screen. That document has been moved into the training class folder. Now when I open up this folder, there is that document at the top of the page. Now I want to start organizing this a bit further. So I'm going to create some subfolders. So I can make folders inside of folders inside of folders, just like I would with any other file management. So I come back up to my new button, and because I'm looking at my training class folder, when I create yet another folder, it's going to be inside of this first level. So I'm going to call this training subfolder 1. And I'm going to create a second one just so I have something to work with. And I click create. So now I have two subfolders inside of this top level training class folder. And I've already showed you how to click and drag one document, but what if I wanted to take two documents? I could click and drag each one separately, but with two files, that's not going to be too hard. But what if I've got 5, 10, 15 files? Doing a click and a drag over and over and over again for each individual file is really going to be time consuming. So I can highlight multiple files at the same time by clicking on the first one that I want, and I can hold down the Shift key and click down to the other one, and it's going to highlight both of those for me. And so that's going to work just with two files. It also works if I want to grab all 5 of these. I could click at the very top document. If I hold down the Shift key and I press all the way down at the bottom, it's going to highlight everything in between as well. I can also do this with a box. I can draw a box around the ones that I want. So instead of using the Shift key, if I click into this white space, so if I don't click directly on the file, but in this white space to the side or underneath, I can draw a box around the files that I want to highlight. So now I've got these 3 files that I have selected. I want to move these first 2. I want to move this sheet and this slide. So if I select both of these and I have both of them selected, now I can do the same click and drag. I need to click directly on the file, so on this text. I click and I hold down that mouse click. I drag it up to subfolder 1, and when I release, it moves those 2 files into subfolder 1. So click and drag works well. It makes it a lot easier when I can highlight multiple files. Now I do want to show you one more option. So I'm going to go down into subfolder 1. So what if I want to take this spreadsheet and I want to move it out of subfolder 1 and I want to move it into subfolder 2. There's nothing in subfolder 2 at the moment. If I were to do a click and a drag, I can click and move it up here into my main class folder, and then open up the class folder and then find it, and then click and drag and move it into subfolder 2. And with one file, just moving out and then back in one level, it's manageable. It's not a problem. But if we're talking about maybe moving multiple files out of one folder, maybe 2 folders out, and then going back in multiple levels, that click and drag system can take a long time. So I want to do the move to function. And what this allows me to do is when I click on this file and I come to the top right corner of the screen, I have some more actions up here at the top right corner. If you were to put a line through those 3 dots, it would look like a shish kebab. So we call this the kebab icon. I'm going to click here, and now I have an option to move to. And what move to does is it opens up a little mini window into Google Drive. And so right now you see I'm looking at training subfolder 1, and I can see up here at the top, that's where I started, training subfolder 1. And if I click the back button, it's going to go back up to this training class folder, this next level up. And I could even go back one more time if I needed to, all the way back up to the top level of my drive. And now I see I'm at the top level of my drive, and I say, okay, I want to go into the training class folder. So I click the forward arrow and I want to go into it. And I want to go into subfolder 2. And now when I'm in subfolder 2, I actually get to see what's in there first. And I can see it and I can confirm, oh yeah, these are the item, this is the folder I'm trying to take this to. So I see where I want it to go. I can actually say move here. And now it takes that sheet, it went out, it went in, and dropped it right where I wanted it to. So this allows us to think of it as though I'm taking multiple steps backward, I'm stepping over to the side 3 or 4 places, and then I'm stepping forward into multiple folders. So it allows me to make multiple moves all at the same time. So you can see how if this were multiple files, going multiple locations out and in, this move to function is going to be way more flexible and more efficient than if we're just clicking and dragging over and over and over and over again. So the move to tool is a great way to do that. Plus, as a sneak preview to other sections we're going to go through, that little tiny window of Google Drive, you're going to see that over and over and over again. So getting familiar with that little window is going to be really important for organizing and sharing things really effectively. So I want you to try this. I want you to create a subfolder inside the folder that we already created. And then I want you to try moving these files around. Do a drag and a drop, highlight multiple files and move that, and then see if you can use the move to function to move a file as well. All right, so we've now organized those files. We have a few different ways we can do that, and good job for all of us. The next thing we need to do is, now that they're organized, maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, 3-4 months later, we need to figure out, where did I put that file? I know I organized it correctly, and I could probably click through slowly and try and find it. But you can think about the times where 6 months from now, you've got this big, huge list of files, and you just can't remember which folder you put it in. So now we need to start leaning on our search. Now, the Google Drive search is incredibly powerful. It's driven by the Google system of search. I mean, that's what they're known for. That's what they do better than anybody else. So I can do very simple searches. I'm going to start all the way back out at my drive. Although when I click on the search bar, where I'm looking really isn't going to make too much of a difference. So I'm going to start here. I'll mimic, maybe you thought it was in this subfolder too. You're like, where's that document I created? I know I called it training something. So I'm just going to start with a simple search for training. So a simple search is just when I type a term into the search bar and click enter. I'm simply searching for any time the term training appears inside of Google Drive. Now you can imagine with my document here, this is my test account that I've shared a lot of my documentation with. You can imagine being in the training group. The word training is probably going to show up just all over the place. So it'll try and prioritize things that were made most recently. But if you start to scroll down, you'll see right off the bat, there's stuff within a 3-year window that's being shown here, or 2-year window, 2018, 2019, 2020. Here's something that was 2016. So in terms of prioritizing, it's just quickly trying to find everywhere you find the term training. So it's going to look probably first in the title of the document, but if you notice this one here, this one doesn't have the term training in the title. So that means the term training is probably somewhere in the body of the document. Maybe there's some sort of text inside of there. And I could just keep scrolling. And it's just going to keep updating more and more all of the different places that the term training appears inside of Google Drive. I'm even going to show you back up here at the top. If you notice, here's an image. So this is an image file. That means that there's no text fields. There's no cells like in a spreadsheet or slide presentations. This is an image, and it's not called training, but inside of that image, there is the word training. So this search is even able to find text inside of image documents. That also includes PDF files. So if there was a PDF file that had the word training somewhere inside of it, it's going to be able to read that too. So this search is incredibly powerful. And what I'm pointing out in this situation to imply is that you might be getting too many results. You might not be able to find what you're looking for, even though you're getting specific terms that you're putting out there. So I want to start using my advanced search to start narrowing down what it is I'm looking for. So to access my advanced search, I click the down arrow on the right side of the screen. And now I have some ways that I can start to be more specific about what it is that I'm looking for. First thing I can do is I can tell it what type of document I'm looking for. First one I want to find that document I created, that text document. So I can search for documents. Now I do want to point out, if you notice, it says documents and not Google Doc. And it says spreadsheets. It does not say Google Sheets. That is because it is looking for any spreadsheet. It could be a Google Sheet, it could be an Excel file, it could be a Mac numbers file. It's looking for any spreadsheet file type. Same thing with presentations. It could be a Keynote or a Google slide or a PowerPoint. You can save all of those files here, and they're going to be searchable within this file type. So I'm going to look for a document. If I know who the owner is, I can also select that here. So if I don't remember anything about the document, maybe you've had that situation where you don't remember what the file was, but you remember saying to yourself, that was really important. I know I need to get back to it. And I know that Franziska shared it with me. So I'm going to look for Franziska as the owner. And so I can specify a person, and it opens up a new field. And then I can be very specific about this file was owned by Franziska. Now in this situation, I know the file I'm looking for. I'm not going to say it was created by Franziska because I'm looking for the file that I created earlier. So I could say anyone, or I could say owned by me. I can also tell it where to look. So when I click anywhere, right now it's looking through the entirety of Google Drive. It's a lot of locations to look through. I want to start narrowing it down, so I start cutting out all of those extra results that I was getting for things that weren't related to something I did recently. So I'm going to click anywhere, and if you notice, this little pop-up window looks very similar to what we were doing with the Move To tool. So right now it's set to anywhere. Well, I want to look in my drive, and so I go into my drive, and I remember that it was in the training class folder, but I don't remember where in the training class folder. So I'm not going to go into the folder. I'm just going to click this top level training class folder and click select. And so this is now telling Google Drive that I'm looking for a document inside of the training class folder. Now, if I keep moving down, I can also say date modified. So if I know it was something that I worked on today, I can say, I just want to see the ones that I worked on today. So if there were other files that happened to match some of this, but nobody had touched them in some time, now I'm just going to see the ones that have been worked on today. The last one I want to show you, or I'll show you two more. So this one has the words. That's the simple search. This is for any document that has the word training. I'm going to leave this one here. And the last one I want to show you is shared with. So if you remember you were working on a file, you don't remember what it was called, where it was located, but you do know that one of your colleagues was working on it because you saw their little picture in the top right corner of the screen. I could say, okay, I can, just like I could with specifying the owner, I can also type out somebody's name here and say, I only want to find the files that were shared with Franziska. Now I haven't shared that file yet, so I am going to remove this one from my search result. But currently I'm looking for any document in the training class folder, modified today, that also has the word training inside of it. So when I click search, instead of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of files, I'm just getting the one. So using this advanced search allows me to be very specific about what I'm looking for and strip away all of those other pieces of all those other documents that aren't related to what I'm specifically looking for. So I want you to try this. I want you to try an advanced search. You don't have to try and find one of the ones that we did today. Use the advanced search to see if you can find something that maybe you were having trouble finding at another point in time. Use that advanced search to see if you can locate it. Give that a try. Try that advanced search. And now I want to get back into it. I'm going to ask you a few questions. So when might you use the move to option? When would you use move to rather than dragging and dropping? What are some of the searchable options in your advanced search? All right, so let's move on to sharing and permission. This is going to allow us the different ways that we can provide access to people and get them involved with this collaborative effort of working on documents. So I'm going to come over to my training class document. Now, right now, I'm still looking at this search. So I did find the document that I wanted to use, but if I was back out in my drive, or I wanted to find a different document, you do need to click over here on my drive to get out of that search window. But now I'm going to go back into that folder. Here's this training class document, and I want to share it with Franziska, who's going to help me collaborate and make some edits. So the first way I do this is I need to share it. Top right corner of the screen, you'll see that there is a lock icon next to the share button. This lets me know that I'm the only person that currently sees this document. And I need to now share it with other people. So I'm going to click share, and it opens up my share window. This allows me to choose the individual people that I want to share this with. So I'm just going to type out Franziska. It allows me to select her, and I can continue to add additional people as well. So this is my training account, so I'm able to share it with Jordan Law, with myself. If I need to, I can add a note. I can say, please review and make changes. And now I can send it. So what this is doing is it's going to send an email notification to the people that I'm inviting. It's also going to give them access because it shows up here. And I'm able to choose what level of access I can give them. So before I click send, I've given my note, I've decided who I want to share it with. I also need to decide what level of access I'm going to give them. In Google Drive, there are 3 levels of access. The first one, the lowest one, is can view. That sounds it is what it sounds like. They can see the document, but that's about it. Can comment allows them to leave comments or suggestions. Those are not permanent changes. Those are things that have to be approved by an editor. And then the top level is they can edit. Now I do want Franziska to edit this document. We are going to be collaborating together. So I add her, I give a note, and I click send. It sends that email notification out to those 2 people. And now they were able to get that indication, click on the link, and they can open up this file and start working on it. So that is one way that I can share things directly with people. Now I can also share things with people via Gmail. So if I wanted to come in and write a letter to somebody and share a document with them, I can actually do that from Gmail as well. So if I want to quickly get over to Gmail, I'm going to come back out to Google Drive, and here's my Google App switcher at the top. I can open up Gmail. And now I can click compose. And so from here, I can send this to Franziska and Jordan again. And I am going to give it a title. Take a look. And I can, in this document, I can say, please make any changes. And I can share Google Drive links. So down at the bottom, you've probably done attachments before, but Google Drive links are actually even a better way of giving this information, because I'm not only sharing the document with them, but I'm keeping it within Google Drive so we can have that collaborative feeling. I'm not just sending them a physical file that then they have to modify and send back to me. So I'm not going to do attachments. I'm going to click the Google Drive link. It looks like a little Google Drive icon at the bottom of the screen. When I select this, I'm going to see a mini version of Google Drive, all my files here. So I can say I want to share this drawing. and I select the drawing and I say insert. And not only does it include it with the document, but it puts it right into the body of the email. So I can say, now this one. And I can do the same thing. And so now I'm including multiple documents and being very clear about which one I want them to look at and when. So this is a much more clear way for us to share documents with people rather than just doing attachments, where you end up with 5 or 6 attachments at the bottom of the document, and then you have to spend half the email describing which document to look at and when. And better yet, since all of my G Suite tools are connected together, when I click send, not only am I sending them the email where they can click on the link, it also will prompt me what level of access do I want to give to Franziska and Jordan. So it's going to default to view only. I'm going to change it to edit. And now when I click send, I'm sending them this email that I crafted, and I'm giving them access in Google Drive. So back over in Google Drive, you'll see this training class document now has this little, it looks like there's multiple people on it. That's letting me know that I have shared this document with other people. And so I still have it open. It's in the top corner of my browser window here. Now I come and look at my document. And sure enough, Franziska has been hard at work making edits that I asked her to make. Now I might have a sudden moment of, oh, I didn't mean to give edit access to somebody. Who has edit access? I don't remember who I shared it with. I can come back up to my share button, and instead of adding new people, I can click on who it's been shared with. And now I can see everybody that I've shared this document with. And as the owner of the document, this test account, I can also modify what level of access somebody else has. So if I actually wanted to change it from edit to comment only, I can make that change here. And once I modify it, I just click done. And now I can see now I can update those sharing settings. So even after I share it, I still have the ability to find out how I shared it with other people. Now that's how I share those things out, but what about something that's been shared with me? Well, in Google Drive, I have my drive, I have shared drives. Right underneath there, there's a section called Shared with Me. So when I shared this document with Franziska, she probably got an email notification, but she can also come here to this Shared with Me section. And in Shared with Me, she would have found all of the documents that had been shared with her account. So here are a few that are listed down here at the bottom. And I see here's one called Goals for FY19. And I say, you know, I use this document all the time, but I don't want to have to keep coming back to this Shared with Me section. Can I just put it in with my other documents so that I can find it with my training class documents that I'm working on today? Well, the good news is yes, you can. And what I want to make sure you know is that you're not moving anything out of this Shared with Me section. But if I have a document selected, in the top right corner of the screen, you see this Google Drive icon with a plus sign. When I click this, what this is allowing me to do is it's allowing me to add a shortcut to anywhere that I want to in Google Drive. So I can add a shortcut back to this document anywhere in Google Drive. And so when I click it, you'll see this exact same window that we've now seen 2 other times for this little mini view of Google Drive. So if I want to go into my drive, because I want to get to that training class folder, there's that training class folder. I can go into training class folder, and I could go into the subfolder, and I can say, yeah, I wanted it to include this goals for fiscal year 19. I want to add these into subfolder 2. So I say add shortcut. And what this does is now when I go into training subfolder 2, I see the spreadsheet that I created, and then I see a document called Goals FY19, and you see it's got this little arrow on the bottom left corner of it, that's letting me know it's a shortcut back to that document. So I'm able to make shortcuts to other documents and put them in a folder that I am using in the way that I want to organize my files. So it's not impacting how somebody else is organizing their files. It's only impacting the way that I am organizing my files. So if you take something that's in shared with me, create a link shortcut for it, you can organize that shortcut wherever you want it to be. So I want you find a file, go to the share button, and then add that other person's email address so that they have access to it. And then once you've done that, I want you to go to your shared with me section, and then don't open it, just find that other file that your colleague has now shared with you. Once you find that file in shared with me, I want you to do the next part, which is I want you to add a shortcut to Google Drive. Find that file in shared with me, create a short link for it, and then go and find it and make sure you can see where that link is. All right, so let's start talking about version history. So I'm going to go back over to this document that I created, and I look at this training class document, and it is very different than the one that I first created. So different, in fact, that I'm starting to wonder who of the people that I shared this with made these changes, because now there's a second bulleted list. There's an image, there's multiple images. Like, this is just so different than what I had. And I'm feeling like I want to know what happened, who made these edits. So in the past, we would have to, it would be a little bit easier just to identify, not easier, it's a different way of identifying which version 1, 2, 2A, 2C, final, which one was emailed to me. And then that was how I knew who made what edit. But if somebody had passed it around to multiple other people and then sent it back to me, I would have no clue what edits were made. But in Google Drive, I can figure this out. So at the top of the screen, where it says last edit was made, it might say a number of different things. It might say all changes saved, last edit was made by, see most recent updates. Mostly what I'm getting at is it doesn't matter what this specific section at the top of the page says, but in a doc, a sheet, or a slide, I can see right here, and I can click directly on this text, and it's going to open my version history. So again, right here where it says last edit or all changes saved, whatever it says, if I click directly on that text, it opens up my version history. And on the right side of the page, I can see every single edit that was made to this document. It's going to tell me who made it and at what time. And if you see the little the color wheel next to that person's name, then on that page, it's going to show you what change they made at that point in time. So if you see a down arrow, if you click that down arrow, it's going to indicate that many changes were made. And so now I can see that at 2:46 p.m., Franziska updated this text, added a bulleted list and a horizontal rule. And I can see at 2:49, she made some text changes, modified the horizontal rule, and some other things. So I can see exactly what changes were made and when, and also who made them. And I look at this and I go, you know, I don't like this version. I like my version better. It was simple. It had just a couple of elements to it. I just wanted this to be a quick list. So I can say, all right, April 13th at 1:57 p.m., I want this to have a better name. I want to identify that this was Gus's version. Gus is my test account. So Gus clicks directly on the timestamp and says Gus's version, or he calls it version 1 or draft 1 or whatever he wants to call it. I'm going to call it a combination of that, Gus's draft. And he says, I want to restore this version. And so he says, I know those were very interesting changes, but I liked my version. I'm going to restore it. So he clicks restore and confirms, yes, I want to restore. And now in the actual edit field, it's back at that original version. Now, myself, Jordan, and Franziska have a sit down with Gus. We go, hey, Gus, what's going on here? Because that document that Franziska was working on, that was actually more the way we were trying to go. And Gus goes, well, I'm sorry, guys. I reverted it back. Well, just like all of those edits that Franziska made, if I come back to my version history, I can see that I didn't lose any of those edits. All Google saw it as was just one big edit to the page. And so I can still click on Franziska's version. I can see the entire body of work that she made, that she worked on. I can say Franziska's edits. I click away and it names it. And I say, now I want to restore that version. And I can click restore, yes. And so now it brings back all of those changes that were made. So even though I didn't make those, I reverted something, I restored a previous version, it just sees it as more edits to the page. So I can see all of the edits for this entire document, for the entire life cycle of this document. So we could say this is here. I come in and make one final change. So I say, I'm just going to remove this bit of text because I don't think it's needed. And then I'm going to put one more horizontal rule. And I say, that's it. We all agree this is the best version of this document. This is our final version. So we can come into our version history and we could, as a team, collectively call this final. And so what you have is, instead of us bouncing documents back and forth, attachments back and forth, we still have the ability to kind of capture these moments in time, draft 1, draft 2, final, and it allows us to still just work on one single document the entire time we're modifying and editing, but still have those moments that we feel like are those milestone moments that allow us to compare the final version with Gus's draft that was originally made. So this is a great way for us to work collaboratively, make sure that we can keep track of everything that was done, but still be able to work as a team and move forward. Let's keep moving forward. I want to now double check, make sure we are all on the same page with those different features. How do you currently share files with your team? What's your current method for collaborating on documents? All right, so next, how do you view the edits made to your document? How do you get to your version history? All right, so how do you share a document using Gmail? So I showed you an example a little bit earlier on. Do you remember how, if I'm in Gmail and I'm writing a message, how do I share a document from Google Drive with the people I'm writing a message to? In the Compose window, what do I have to click? All right, so this next section I want to walk you through. I'm actually going to treat this more as a demo with the 10 minutes or so that we have left. The reason I'm going to show it more as a demo, and I'm not going to have you go in and do it, is that my hope is that you won't have to. I want you to know that it's possible and that you can come back in and do some of these items if you need to. But if we're creating inside of Google Drive and our whole team is working inside of Google Drive, we shouldn't have to keep doing this conversion back and forth. And so I want you to know it's possible, again, if you have some colleagues that are still using Microsoft Office, which maybe I should also point out, I'm not trying to say you're never going to use Microsoft Office ever again. If you're doing a direct comparison of Google Docs with Microsoft Word just wins. Like, it has more features, but that's just if you're looking at Word versus Docs and nothing else. It's just how many features you have available to you. That's because Microsoft Word is a desktop app. It has the full power of your desktop computer to run all of these really advanced features. Now, I found that most folks that are, not everybody, there's a decent number of folks that are really tied to Microsoft Word are mostly because of the familiarity. They may not even be using some of the really power user type features. And again, that's not everybody. There are definitely situations where maybe somebody's creating a long document, or they need a really robust format option, or they need to go in and do a bibliography section that has very specific, really fine-tuned formatting or multiple page variations within a document. There are valid reasons why we're still going to be using Microsoft Word. But for most of our business purposes, you may find that Google Docs is going to be able to handle the vast majority of those things. So there might be situations where you're still starting something in one place and bringing it into another for final modification. So I want to show you an example of what this can look like and when you might be converting back and forth. All right, so I'm going to go over to Google Drive, and I am going to use this document that I've been working on, this training class document. I'm going to call this training class Google document. So I just modified the name. That's going to make things a little bit easier for me on the other end. So if I have this Google Doc and one of my colleagues, or maybe it's a vendor or a third party that has said, hey, I would like to make some changes to your document. Can you send me the Word file? And you go, well, we're using Google Drive and Google Docs, but yeah, I can send you a Word file. That's not a problem. So with this file open, if I come over to my File menu in the top left corner, I click on File. I have a few options when I come to Download. And I can download this as Microsoft Word, as a few other options, even plain text, but I can also download it as a PDF file. So I've got some options here. So downloading as a PDF is just a good thing to know about if I need to get this into a format that's not as easy to modify. So I have that option here as a PDF. Or I can download it as a Microsoft Word file. So if I say, yes, I want to download this as a Word file, it downloads to my computer, and I can email it out using my regular attachments with email. Now let's pretend I am now the vendor on the other end, or my colleague on the other end that has received this file, and they've downloaded it to their computer. They can open it up, and it opens up as a standard Microsoft Word file. Now again, it's not a perfect conversion, but you're going to see that it should be pretty close. Let's see how it does. So my computer is opening up Microsoft Word right now. And yeah, it's pretty close. It got the same formatting. Oops. I'm going to go full screen with this. It has the same formatting. There's my image. And it even got some of the text around the image. But actually, if you notice, it did move the text just slightly. So it did a pretty good conversion. It's not absolutely the same, but it's pretty close. So as the vendor, I come in and I change this from this is a document. I'm going to say title. And that's the change that I made to the document. Now I need to save as, so I can save it as my version, this vendor version. I'm going to call this version 2 and click save. And so that gets sent back to me from the vendor. So now, again, the situation I'm kind of building is person at Pepperdine downloads it as a Word file and shares it with somebody else. That somebody else makes their changes and sends it back to me. And so now I say, okay, well, that was all the changes we needed to make, but I use Google Drive as a place to store all of my files. So even though I don't have any additional edits to make, I still want to bring this Microsoft Word file into Google Drive so that I can store it long term. So I'm going to open up my training class folder. And yeah, here's this document here. I'm going to click now, instead of creating a new file, I'm essentially going to create a new upload. So I click on the new button. And instead of creating a folder or a document, I say File Upload. And it's going to open up my viewer for my computer. And I see here's this version 2 that I created. I click Open, and now it uploads this Word file into Google Drive. And you'll even see now that they're listed right next to each other, I have Training Class Google Document, Training Class Google Document version 2, and it has the different file format letting me know that this is a Word file. This is not a Google Doc anymore. This is a full Word file. It also gives me a different icon as a W, which indicates Microsoft Word. So I can double click this Word file. It opens up in this quick viewer, and I can view this Word file, and I can see that now that I've done multiple conversions, it's trying to keep up, but it's having a little bit of a hard time. This is where that conversion back and forth, it's not perfect. It's close, but it's not perfect. But it does allow us to keep this Word. Oh, actually, no, I apologize. I haven't converted anything. So this is it trying to read the Word document from this window. So I can actually say, I want to go ahead and open this up with Google Docs. Now, when I click this, I'm not converting it to a Google Doc. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the Word file through the lens of Google Docs. So you'll even see it still maintains this .docx indicator. But I can actually look at this file, and I can actually come in and I can modify some of the text. And this is modifying and saving automatically directly to that Word file. So I'm still able to come in and make modifications directly to this Word file. And if my last step is, I say, you know, I have this Word file, I don't want to keep modifying the Word file, I actually want to convert it to a Google Doc. Back in my file menu, instead of downloading as, right above it, I now have the option, since this is a Word file, the format is a .docx, I can save this as a Google Doc. So this is doing that final conversion from Word back to a Google Doc. And you'll see it's converting right now. It's back over in this screen. Here's the Word file. Here's the Google Doc file. They both look pretty close. I can close all of them. And if I look back in my Google Drive, you'll see I've got the original file, I've got the Word file, and then I have my Google Doc version of that file. So that conversion is possible. And the reason why at the very beginning of today, I had you go into your settings and I had you change your settings to make sure you weren't automatically converting, is because if you didn't have that selected, the moment you upload a Word file or an Excel file, it's going to automatically convert it to the Google version. And so if there's any minor change, if it's not that perfect conversion, that's going to happen without you telling it to. So I recommend that you don't have that automatic conversion on. You use Google Drive like a place just for storage. And when you decide to convert, that's when you can make that conversion happen. I do want to mention one last thing, and that's the G Suite Learning Center. I just went over so much stuff. If there's any piece of that a couple days from now or even later today, you go, oh, I remember Jordan mentioned something about converting files, but I don't remember how to do that. In the gear icon, or actually right next to the gear icon, you see this question mark at the top of the screen in Google Drive. If I click that question mark and go to the training option, this is going to take me to the G Suite Learning Center. And the G Suite Learning Center is where Franziska and I come when we're trying to learn a brand new G Suite tool. We actually use it on a regular basis because it provides guided walkthroughs on getting started with Google Drive. And it's going to go step by step, option by option, for all of the different things I may need to learn while I'm using Google Drive. So if I was curious about how to create folders or move files to folders, I could come to this section and it's going to show me the move to option, or how to drag and drop files, or even how to make copies of files. So even stuff that I didn't talk about, there is so much you can get from this G Suite Learning Center. Please, please use it. It's incredibly helpful. And with that, that is our time. I really appreciate all of you sticking with me. If you have any questions, please call or email. Franziska and I are both available. Again, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.